What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to do a comparison of the MMC Incursus with the Zeta Toys Blitzkrieg. These are both versions of a Masterpiece Onslaught, and both are different combiners. So the MMC version, really their Bruticus is an all-in-one combiner where they're trying to have all the parts, the hands, the feet, the torso, all inside the robots, whereas the Zeta Toys was separate robots with some combiner parts that come in. That's why this box is so freaking gigantic, because it's got all those combiner parts in it. So that's really what we're going to take a look at. We're going to take a look at the vehicle mode, and then the robot mode, and finally the combined mode. And we'll give a score on each of these. They both come with instructions and collector's cards, so we're not going to take a look at those as part of this review, but we will take a look at all the accessories. So let's get started with that. So let's start off with accessories here. Now, the Zeta comes with just an absurd amount of accessories. And when I first reviewed this guy, I didn't even know what you could use everything for, but everything can be used in the robot mode, so, and the vehicle mode. So this is the only accessory you get with MMC. With the Zeta, you get this, which is a ramp that can be used in the vehicle mode, but in the robot mode, you can use this as a shield, which is kind of interesting. So you can put this in here like this, and then this can mount in his hand. There you go. So that's a feature. You also have these screw hole covers, so he's got lots of screw holes, and that's what this is for. Cover those up. You also get these, which are interesting. So they both have these rockets on the back. If you pull off the end of the one on the Zeta, and you pull this up, and you put those in, and I believe this is more for the vehicle mode, but there's a little tab here, and you got to get that tab to engage. You can slot this in here, and now you can actually fire this, which is kind of silly. I mean, I don't remember seeing that in the cartoon, but it's a thing you can do with this. So that's another thing. And then they both have the guns, so we'll eliminate these since they both have the same thing. So just because of the sheer number of accessories and what you can do with them, we're going to give accessories to Zeta. Let's start with Sculpt. So the two are very different in their style. In fact, let's take a look at the G1 cartoon there. And when we look at the two, the MMC is obviously going for the cartoon colors, the cartoon sculpt. The head, everything is really reminiscent of the cartoon. But there are some things that in liberties that Zeta takes that I think actually turn out better. So for example, this chest area right here, it's a little bit busy. It's got some tabs and stuff. On the Zeta, they took some liberties here. This doesn't necessarily look like the Digimon cartoon, but it looks nice. It's got that little grill there. Same with some of the other panels, like you got some translucent plastic here with some pistons or something behind it. Some more grill stuff here. So those aren't G1 accurate, but they look kind of cool. So it depends. If you like the cartoon look, in terms of cartoon accuracy, I've got to give it to MMC. In terms of sculpt, just the smoothness and the cleanliness of at least from the front, I'm going to give that to Zeta for sculpt. Now let's talk about the engineering. Now, getting them here, the transformation for the Zeta is really quite irritating, and I'll just show you. You can already see, right? The panels just are floppy and loose. The whole thing is just floppy. This backpack especially never really stays where you want it to be. The whole thing is very irritating to go from mode to mode. And that's kind of the downfall of this thing, is the floppiness of it. When you pick this guy up and you shake it, nothing moves. It's just like all the other figures they put out. Their Frodo and their Impetus, they're solid as a rock. You know, nothing moves on this. And for such a big figure that does so much and is all in one, all of the combiner parts are in there too, it just blows my mind that they're able to make it this solid. So when it comes to transformation and engineering, I have to give it to MMC. The engineering on this is just phenomenal. how it gets between the modes, the fact that it's all inclusive, the way that the creativity of it is amazing. This guy does a lot of it with panels, so that's why you end up with all this stuff on the back. And actually that was true for almost all of the Zeta. You can see stuff is still falling apart. But you can see the way they do everything, all of their stuff is just panels and hollow things. This is like a solid, heavy chunk. And weight-wise, they're probably similar, but it just feels solid. So we're going to give both engineering and transformation, just because of the complexity and the funness of this, to MMC. Let's talk about the paint. So on the Zeta toys, really almost no paint. You've got a little bit on the face there, on the eye mask. A little bit of gray paint here for this vent. And if you take a look, in the vehicle mode, there is a little bit of paint on the grill and on that logo, and then on these tail lights. And on the gun here, you've got some paint. You've got some almost like hatch doors that are painted in. And then a little bit of wiring, which is kind of neat. And you've got like a gas tank down here on the feet. But the rest of the chest, arms, legs, that blue is all just standard plastic. Let's take a look at the MMC. So you got some paint here, a little bit of details. Some silver here, but that comes more out in the limb or the torso mode. Same thing with the head. The head and face is painted. On the side, you've got this painted. Now, this is all this colored because of cartoon accuracy. They went with that. You still got head tail lights here. You got these painted cannons on the top. You've got the paint on the top here for the camouflage, which shows up more in the vehicle mode. So pretty close on in terms of paint. Both of them don't have a lot of paint. Now when you get to the combined mode and the vehicle mode, there's a lot more paint than what's showing in the robot mode. So because of the application here, now Zeta has little accents here and there, like that add to it, like this. But it is not cartoon accurate, so it's really just their own little creative touch. But because there's a lot more of that on the Zeta, I'm gonna have to give paint to Zeta toys. That doesn't mean that this is not painted or colored well. I actually really like the color and paint, but just in terms of the volume and amount of paint and where it's used and how it's used, I'm going to give it to Zeta toys. Now let's talk about build. So in terms of build, there's just really no competition here. The Zeta is just a big floppy mess, and that's kind of their thing. Their thing is to make very cheap, low-cost bots for the individual bot modes, but then a solid, articulated, and just big combined mode. So when it comes to the robot modes, everything kind of just flops around. It doesn't really peg in properly like it's supposed to, and it just is kind of irritating to work with. It's also back heavy, so he tends to flop backwards because of his heavy backpack, so you end up having to rotate his thighs, and then it just doesn't do the right things. And then the first D10 is pretty far out, so it just, the build quality just isn't there. And when you look at this guy and the hardware that they're using on this, and the fact that he's so solid, nothing comes off, nothing shakes, the quality on this is next level. Now they were built in different years, so you take that with into consideration. But really, when it comes to build, there's really no competition. MMC takes build. Now let's talk about articulation. So they are very similar in terms of articulation, but there are some things that are much smoother on the MMC version. So let's take a quick look. So the head is on a ball joint for Zeta. For the MMC, it is on a double ball joint. So you got a ball joint down in the bottom of the neck, or at least a swivel. And then you get the side to side. They both get the side to side, but you get forward and backward, side to side rotation. So a little bit more articulation on the MMC. Shoulders, you can get the whole thing up to there. down to there. Rotates all around. Arm goes all the way up to there. Single jointed elbow gets you up to there, 90 degrees. The MMC, you get up to there, just like the Zeta, or you can use that ratchet joint, which gets you up to there. You do have a rotation at the bicep. Oh, I forgot to mention that this also has a rotation of the bicep. You do get a double jointed elbow on the arm, so much better articulation. Single individually articulated fingers. On this one, you got a single pin, only one point of articulation on the hand. They both have a rotation. They both have hip skirts, and continuing on to the legs, you get the same articulation at the thigh. You have rotation at the knee, very similar to, but the Zeta has a rotation at the thigh. So a little bit cleaner there on that thigh. You do have a 90-degree bend at the knee, and things tend to fall over. Same thing, 90-degree bend here, and a rotation at the knee, all ratcheted. You do both have a ankle tilt. The Zeta does not have an ankle pivot. It only has the ankle tilt. The MMC does give you the, if I did it on the right joint, it does give you the ankle pivot forwards. So because of the extra articulation on the head, the double jointed elbows, and oh, and we forgot one thing here, you've got the extra ab crunch. All of them have had ab crunch. I didn't think this guy would have ab crunch, and it does, so kudos to them for putting in the extra effort to give you ab crunch. That also gives you ab crunch in the combined mode, but just really nice. It's just a friction joint. So because of all those extra joints, we're going to give the articulation to MMC. And here we have them both in their vehicle modes, and they are kind of similar in size. The Zeta is a little bit longer, but you'll see that the MMC is a little bit shorter in terms of height. They do have a lot of similar features, so you can lift up the gun and rotate all the way around. You can also extend the gun here, and these individually articulate, although to me it doesn't really add a lot. But you can also mount the cannon or the weapon in this mode as well. You do have to mount it kind of upside down here. Basically stick it in there, and then you basically tab it into the sides of this gun, and you can mount there. The Zeta, I have not seen a way to mount this gun. You can maybe stick it on one of these side things there, and that looks okay. It's not great, but you can do that. The Zeta also articulates up and down, so it's on a ratchet here. It also rotates here. Oop. That's just pegged in. And rotate it here, although it's a pretty tight connection there. So you'll see this truck seems a little bit more realistic in terms of looking like a real truck, but this one looks more like the G1 cartoon. In fact, let's put G1 cartoon up in the middle there, and I think it's very obvious that the MMC is trying to nail that cartoon look. I love the front of this too. It's got that camo and then the headlights. Really nice look to it. But is it in scale? Not really. So let's take a quick scale comparison. Here's my trusty blue streak, and it does appear like MMC is a little bit on the short side, but it's okay. It doesn't. I think I can live with it. But there is a scale. The other features you have here, the Zeta, you can put those missiles I showed earlier in here, and they actually do. If you take this off, you can actually fire them. It's kind of strange, but that's something you can do. You can also use that ramp, and that ramp has a couple different features here. You can also, here, let's turn this around. You can also fold these ramps out, so if you want to use these as a way to drive the vehicles up, you could. So there you have that. But one thing that's really irritating on this Zeta is just the build. Things just pop apart. Panels just don't stay in. It feels really flimsy, and as you play with it and mess with it, it doesn't really stay together. And then you can see it's pretty hollow in the middle there. There's not a lot of stuff. It's a lot of panel-y flipping And then you look at the MMC, it's like a solid chunk. Now it is all in one combiner, so that's part of the reason why, but nothing feels like it's loose on this. And then the Zeta, as you shake it, it comes apart. So, and then one last feature here with the MMC, you press this button, you can separate the trailer and you get this articulation. We don't have that on the Zeta. You can separate there, but it doesn't allow you to have a trailer or anything like that. It's just, that's all you get. So it is one solid trailer there. So in terms of the vehicle mode, I've got to give it to MMC just because it's a little more geo inaccurate, but also I think it really does look better, and it's much more solid. So we're going to give the alt mode to MMC. Alright, here they are in their combined modes. Obviously very different sizes. The MMC is much smaller than the Zeta toys, and it does show all the limbs are also that same way. Now, some people might say, hey, this is an unfair comparison because you're showing all this extra, parts forming stuff. But in reality, this actually all came in the same box. So everything you see here came with the Blitzkrieg figure. Now, the Blitzkrieg figure is really just this blue part that kind of inserts into this shell here. So everything you see on the front, the thighs, the waist, the chest, the head, that's all a shell that Blitzkrieg fits into. But it all came in the box with Blitzkrieg, so it's fair to review because this is what came in the box with Incursus. With that being said, though, it is a lot different. Let's take a look at articulation on these guys. So on the Incursus figure, you have a rotation at the head. It does go up that much. It doesn't really go down much. It also has a light up feature. Let's see if we can get that to go. Sometimes I gotta open this up. And okay, so you get that light up feature. And it doesn't go down much, which is unfortunate for a figure of this size. Combiner, it really should be able to look down on his Autobots or whatever. You do have a joint here for the shoulder. Rotation at the shoulder. You have a rotation at the waist, and you have an ab crunch that goes pretty far, just as far as it did on the regular bot. And you've got hip skirts here that rotate upwards. The leg goes up to there, goes back to there, and goes out to here. A lot of people asked me in my other review, is this weak? Is the joint feel weak? No, it's not. I actually had it mistransformed in my other review, so that's why it looked like it was falling apart, but it really is solid there. It's not going anywhere. And then obviously at the knee, you've got this. I mean, you're going to be moving, you're going to be manipulating this bot, but that's going to move this joint here. So that's the articulation on this guy. On the Zeta, it is pretty much exactly the same. You've got all the same articulation. You've got the rotation, the ab crunch. I mean, literally everything is the same. Now, you do have hip skirts on the back here, so that's a little bit different. They do rotate out of the way completely. So that's about the only thing that's different in terms of articulation. The other thing that's different is this head. It does get a little bit down versus just the up. It still has the same light up feature, but it lights up and makes sound. Now you can't see the light up feature because of my lights, but everything in terms of articulation is the same. Now I will say the joints on here are really nice and tight, so you get really good quality joints on this, and that's what makes this combiner really, really sturdy and solid. So that's something that I think Zeta figured out early on, is how to make a solid combiner that doesn't fall apart and is easy to pose. And honestly, I think they probably would have been better just making a gigantic action figure that had posability, and don't even put the bots in, because most of their bots aren't very good in terms of quality, in terms of sculpt and engineering. But what they really lack in robot mode, they really make up for in this combined mode. So that'd be great. They don't do that. But anyway, because of that reason, because of the solid feel and just the sheer size and the stability, I'm going to give the combined mode. Also with the additional articulation that he gets in terms of the head, and also just the robustness of the joints, I'm going to give articulation to Zeta toys. So the final factor here is the cost. So the Incursus figure comes in at $160 retail. The Zeta Blitzkrieg figure comes in at $135 retail. You do get all of the combiner parts with the Blitzkrieg, but the Zeta or the MMC has it all in one. It's all included. So you don't need the combiner parts. It has the combiner parts. So essentially you're getting the same thing, but because this is quite a bit cheaper at $135, we give cost to Zeta. Final thoughts wise, I think if you take a look at the score, you'll see that the MMC has taken the win. Now, there were a lot of things that surprised me when I did this review. So a couple of things was, I thought there was going to be a lot bigger distance between the two, especially with Zeta, kind of the quality of it. But there's a few things that they've done right here, but overall, I think they really need to up their game on the quality and the build and the transformation and engineering, because by focusing only on the combined mode, you really lost out on a lot of things, a lot of advantages you could have kept. Like for example, the sculpt overall was pretty good, but unfortunately, it didn't equate to a win here for Zeta. So this will be the second Zeta comparison I've done, and the second one where they've lost. And I'm not sure, unless they change the way they build these bots. Now, they're really going for combined mode, so if you bought this for combined mode and that's the way you have it displayed, you're probably going to be pretty happy. If you're looking for individual bots for your Combaticons, then you're probably going to want to go for this. But either way, if you have one or the other and you prefer that, and then that's what you like, then you win. But thanks for watching. That's really it for this review. I plan to do more of these in the future as we get more of these figures or any other combiner figures. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.